Hello everyone and welcome to the World Class Stand podcast. Our special guest today is Craig Alcock, and today we'll be talking about what makes a world class player, England and the current game. But before we get there, Steve, can you tell us a little bit more about the World Class Club?
Yeah, we've set up a new members area called the World Class Club, and what you get in that is early release of our episodes. So as soon as we drop the first episode, the second episode of every guest is immediately available. We can also use it for donations. So if you like what we do, we enjoy the comments coming in from our audience and the viewers. We love responding to those. So that's also there if you want to donate to us so we can keep doing what we're doing. There's also a Q&A opportunity, so we can ask our guests questions from you and give you a shout out as well for that question. And also guest polls. So we have a list of leads for next guests and we can put that on the members area. So you choose who comes on our podcast next. And all that is £2.99 and that product will build and build over time.
Yeah, and if you like today's episode, guys, remember to like and subscribe and we'll get back to you.
Hello everyone and welcome to the World Class Stand podcast. Our special guest today is Craig Alcock. Craig, thanks for coming to the show.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Good to see you.
And you, mate. Been a while.
It has. I was thinking 20 years maybe?
Probably not far off. And you look exactly the same, like you said.
So do you.
Thanks, mate.
Brilliant. Yep.
Oh, so going around then, Craig, just talking about football in general, and we're trying to nail down what world class actually is. So how do you define a world class player, and can you describe it to us?
How would I describe a world class player? Probably I'd say for world class for me is probably someone that you'd look at that could get in any team in the world, really, I think, and someone that you would genuinely part with your own money to go and watch.
Right,
I think, and someone like you say that can literally get in any team, because I think the term itself, I think, is thrown out far too loosely nowadays with some. I think world class in itself is probably, there's only a little small pantheon of players that probably sit on that.
Yeah, I think Matt Letizia said the same actually.
Somebody compared to him.
Yeah, I was going to say, you hit the mark already.
Yeah.
Somebody you pay money to watch, like you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Is just there a particular time frame you'd say they'd have to be at a certain level for to be called world class?
I think you need to have a certain body of work behind you as well.
Yeah.
I don't think, because again, in this country, we're really good at overhyping players within the space of 2 seconds. And then we're quite happy then to go and chop them off at the knees within about 6 months. So, yeah, I think you need at least probably a year or two's worth, at least probably 2 years worth behind you. But at the same time, within that, if someone's staring you in the face where they've done unbelievable, like, and the stats back it up to a degree, I know the stats can be misleading to a degree as well. However, I think you need a little bit of body of work behind you, but at the same time, then maintaining them levels over and over again. So you'd say it's a sustained period over probably 5-6 years, sort of thing, at least.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Is it easier to rate after a career than during playing days? Could you say, like you said, there's your body of work? Is it easier to
Again,
give
I
out the
suppose
world class stamp at the end?
To a degree, but at the same time, the game's always changing. Everything's evolving, and what you're judging by world class in this day and age might be what you class world class years gone by. And that's why I think it's always difficult to compare players from this era to the previous era and stuff, because technology's changed, what they've got to do, the speed of the game, everything like that. So I think you almost just got to have an appreciation for players in the moment, really, rather than looking back. Because equally, on the flip side, you could say people were overhyped later on in life than what they actually probably did at the time, because like you say, they may be a name that sticks in your head because they might have done media career after, and then you may know about them more during the time. So I think it's important you judge them at the time, really, but still have an appreciation after as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. What about some of the players playing today in the Premier League? Any that stand out to you as world class right now?
I think in terms of world class ones, I think you've got to look at someone like De Bruyne probably would be him. Bernardo Silva, you could argue. Again, probably you'd say maybe Alisson in goal then for Liverpool.
Yeah.
You could argue Van Dijk as well to a certain extent. I think beyond that, that's, if I'm brutally honest, I'd say that's probably.
What about right back area? There's a few good English ones, Trent and Kyle Walker. Do you think any of those have hit world class levels?
I think both are very, very good in their own way. For me, Kyle Walker's probably better in terms of a defender, because I think as we've seen now, Trent's moving into a different sort of narrative of how he's getting it described now and how he's sort of playing. But I think Kyle Walker's the best right back we've got by a long way at the minute, if I'm honest.
Do you think Walker, again, looking at Premier League era completely, Gary Neville gets talked about as sometimes the best, well, mostly actually the best right back we've seen Premier League era. Would you agree with that? Or do you think Kyle Walker's maybe...
Yeah, again, I think the thing that Kyle Walker's probably had different to what Gary Neville had is a right back was deemed as just a right back, defend, stay behind, touch, cross. Whereas now I think you're expected to be a right winger, a right back, centre midfielder, centre half, right centre half.
Yeah.
So I think it's changed a lot in that respect. So you probably maybe are technically better. But if you were to ask me, define your perfect right back per se, then you'd still say Gary Neville's up there. But I would say as in the conversation nowadays, Kyle Walker's doing as good a job as anyone.
What about in your playing days? Were you more the Gary Neville side or more the Kyle Walker, the expectation, of that position?
Yeah, I think, well, to be fair, I was probably the man in the crowd's best friend because I probably kept giving him a few balls every game. But yeah, no, I think, well, for personally, I think I just used to try and just know my limitations, know where I was good, and I was fortunate enough to play with a couple of good wingers and stuff like that. You just give them the ball and let them get on with it, basically. And again, I think a lot of that depends the systems you play and stuff, because very much in our day it was 4-4-2. You let your wingers go and run, and then the fullbacks stay behind it. Again, like Gary Neville had. Whereas now you got 4-3-3, inverted wingers, and the game's just moved on quite a lot. I think in a very short space of time.
Yep.
Yeah, it has. Next segment, I think.
Yep. So
I don't know if that defines world class. Yeah.
No, I mean it's very opinion led, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone has a different opinion basically on what it is, and I think your bar seems, in my view, good because it's quite high. It does get thrown around a lot, and we've thrown it around on this channel quite a lot, to be honest.
No, I think it is. I think because if you're literally saying world class, you're talking about someone that is within the 1% of the country or 1% of the world.
Yeah.
That's aim of the game. You're not talking 28,000 people or whatever, because it's not.
We've had a big debate on this channel with a very high-profile player, a striker. I think we've all given it out, but it's a guest, Alan Shearer. Would you class Alan Shearer as world class?
As world class, as a Premier League player, yes. Because I think by far and away he's the best world class player in terms of his numbers. Don't lie in terms of that. I think, again, a world class, I would say he's in the conversation.
Yeah.
But I would say he's like in England. Great, if I'm honest, in terms of what he's achieved. But again, I would say he's more Premier League era. Personally, because maybe he was probably a victim by more what happened on the international stage in terms of England not doing probably as great. But I would definitely say he's up there for me.
Yeah, I think Tony Cottee described him as a world-class goal scorer, not necessarily a world-class player.
No, if you ask someone, I would still say now to any point, who do you want up front for you in a one-off game as a final? I think 9 times out of 10 he would be up there as one person you would pick.
Yeah. And I think for a few seasons he would have got in any team in the world in that position. Yeah, he was the best.
There was a lot of good strikers though around that time, wasn't there? Especially in the Italian league. The original Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Again, that's why it's hard to judge people. Because, like you say, if you've got someone like, no disrespect to a lot of the players previous, but if you had, say, Messi in that era, you would be saying, like, Messi probably is world class, which he is now. But would you say he's world class in Pele, Maradona's era? Again, it's impossible to compare.
Could he play in that era? I mean, that was a good conversation someone brought up before, wasn't it? Could players now play in that era? I mean, they could play in this era, but could they go back?
Yeah, exactly that. The balls are different. The massive thing people say about now is the amount of games and stuff like that, and you're asking players to perform at a high level more often, which is probably back in the day you didn't have to do maybe as much, but you had less players in the squad as well, so you were playing more often anyway. So
definitely.
That's why I think you've got to judge each era on its own merit, really, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair point.
So we've moved into a few England players there. But just to touch on, I guess, the world-class England contingent we got now. Mm-hmm. Is there any that fit that bill for you before we get into the Euro kind of conversation?
Again, I mean, you would argue probably, I mean, not current. I mean, the natural one everyone would say about is probably Bellingham, isn't it, for what he's achieved in such a short space of time. So you would say there's a conversation to have about. Again, Harry Kane, you would say, again, as a player, as a goal scorer, because you can't argue what he's gone and done at Bayern Munich. Again, regardless about them as a team, he's done his job more so.
He has,
and gone over there. But for me, I suppose at the minute, in terms of the England team, world class, you could say there's world leading players, but actual definitively world class players, I'd say there's 2 potentials.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily...
And that's Bellingham and Kane, right?
I'd say Foden's probably
Foden, right,
world class. But in terms of at the minute, I would say there's no definitive world class player. Like I say, Kane's close currently, but I wouldn't say that's a definitive one.
Okay. So England's chances at the Euros, bit of a setback the other night against Iceland. Question marks being raised around Gareth Southgate's selection of the squad. So a couple of high-profile players left out. What are your thoughts on England's chances at the Euros, and what's your minimum expectations on how far they need to get in the competition?
Personally, I think they've got, well, like everyone would say, as good a chance as anyone. They've probably got the best squad, you'd argue, there potentially. My only sort of slight concern is maybe the balance of it in terms of defensively and stuff. And I know a lot of people make a big deal about Trippier playing as left back or actual, but I personally would still rather go with a proper left back per se, or even if he's, no disrespect, but if you say it was, I don't know, Chilwell was obviously not fit, but then do you look down the league, look down the teams at other players that are at lesser clubs, what could be perceived lesser clubs, but is performing equally better? I'd rather have a specialist player in their positions rather than try and shoehorn other players in personally. But on the whole, I don't think there's too many complaints about the squad in general. I think that would be my own personal opinion, is in fact I would probably put another naturally left-footed left back in. Yeah. Other than that, I don't see it. I can see why that's some of the high-profile names, like you said, have been left out. Because I think on their day, you would say if they were all playing well, they probably would be in it. Yeah. However, on the back end of the season and what's happened, and if you correlate the stats and things like that, and I know stats can be misleading and all that, and they're a great interpretation for people to use and as you wish, but I think it's probably the most, in terms of what he's got available, I'd say it's pretty much there or thereabouts. Okay,
and what about Harry Maguire as well? Obviously, played with him at Sheffield United. He'll be disappointed to miss out, more through probably fitness-wise.
Yeah.
What does he bring to the England team? Because Gareth Southgate picks him all the time, and you've played with him. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on him being absent from the England team, and how much of a blow is that?
I think he's a massive blow, if I'm honest. I think people can say what they want about him. For me personally, he's a great kid. And obviously I knew him as a young kid, so he's probably matured even more so now. I think it speaks volumes for him that no matter how many times he's been battered and this, that and the other, he still plays. He's still got the trust, which is the biggest thing for me, I think, from a personal point of view, in terms of if your manager trusts you, then you're going to play well. I think he's almost a victim of his own success, really. I think he was that good, that's young, and everyone talks about him, again, like we do in this era and this media. We like to build people up to then quickly knock them down. It's not his fault he got bought for 85 million quid or whatever and went to Man United. That's not his fault. But I personally think he's a big miss, and I think, like you said, if it wasn't for the fact he's not fit, I think he goes.
Yeah, I agree.
I would just say it's only because he's not fit.
Yeah, well, I think personally, I know they had that setback the other night, but I personally think England are going to win the Euros. No pressure.
I was going to say that's flipping. I don't know if there's enough wood to touch though. That's all right.
Nice wood, actually.
Well, the only sticking point there has been is the manager. Can he get him over the line? They've got a squad certainly to go out and do it. I think Southgate could, leave the brakes on and maybe go in a defensive mindset rather than go on lads, go out and win this.
It's a tough one because if we use that term world class, I mean everyone can say about Ancelotti for Real Madrid. Like he says, they're the easiest team in the world to manage because you just let them go out there and do what you want. All you've got to do is really keep them in line and keep them in check. Yes, you can do all the tactics and all the stuff you want to in the world, but if your 11 outworks and outperforms the other 11, 9 times out of 10, or nearly enough 10 times out of 10, you're going to win. So I, for his sake, I almost want him to win it just to shut everyone up, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Because I hate the fact that, again, everyone's quick to tell what he can't do rather than actually what he has done and what he can do. Because I think as much as people can say about his in-game tactician, in-game management and this, that and the other might not be up to scratch, which is fine, that's fair enough. But I think what he's done positive far outweighs that, and equally that's what you got coaching staff for, if I'm honest, and they've got to have an opinion to. So I don't think that can solely be labelled at him. I think that's equally the players on the pitch and other coaching staff as well, as much as the manager.
But he's been hammered in the past for picking players he trusts, who've played well for England but not necessarily playing well for their club. He's flipped that now. He's gone on form, hasn't he? Probably still getting hammered for that, isn't he? But as you say, it could be his last tournament. As Matt says, is he going to be a bit more open with the way he plays? I don't know, but he's made the right calls generally. As one player, I think probably should have snuck in there, but he's picked on form, and he can't.
Who's that?
I would have rather had Grealish on the bench, in the squad, and then on the bench, obviously.
Yeah.
I just think, looking at that player, is there anyone else that can do what he can do?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily talking about the Man City Grealish. I'm talking about maybe the Aston Villa Grealish. He's the one I would have had in.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you.
But for who?
But yeah, I must admit I haven't seen the full squad, so I couldn't even tell you.
Well, personally, I know I might offend a few West Ham fans here, but I probably would have left. Bowen's had a great season, done exceptionally well. But I'm purely, and this is maybe me going on player name rather than form, but I would rather Grealish on the bench than Bowen.
Yeah, it's tricky with that. I don't know. Yeah, I think he needs to go though. Well, obviously he's not, but I would have had Grealish on. Maybe was it Theo Wharton?
Adam Wharton, yeah.
Even the Man United youngster, Manu.
They got Manu,
yeah.
You would have
but
maybe left him out.
They don't really need maybe Wharton. Potentially,
See, I'd disagree with that. I would say you'd be one of the first people I'd take.
Really?
Personally.
Yeah,
because I think it's important to players that are potentially that good. And I think he's obviously got himself in there because, again, this is where Southgate probably has done really well by taking 33 initially, because I think if he takes 26, he probably doesn't get in initially. But I think he's probably done so well in that short spot. And there's going to be players, no disrespect, that are just suited to international football maybe and just are earmarked as actually better probably in that than maybe we realise, and you take him. So...
yeah,
I understand, like you say, the sentiment. Part of me would even take Grealish as well, maybe even put Saka as a left back, because I think try and weigh it up as look at England, and you would say the majority of the games we're going to have more ball. So why do we need to be so defensive minded to a degree? When on your sentiment about laying the shackles off, so to speak. Well, if you've got Rice to sort of sit in front, you can let Walker and Saka be your sort of fullbacks, come wing-backs at times and stuff. So, again, unfortunately for Southgate, he's got 60 million England managers, not flipping.
I know,
exactly, isn't it? Yeah, everyone's got a different squad probably, if you ask someone. And then obviously another one, which I think maybe should have went, is Maddison. Because when you got those type games against, the likes of France and, even against Iceland, they struggle to unpick the defence when they sit in. So having just an array of options on the bench with a bit of skill, bit of moment of magic, I think could have done with that a bit more. But yeah, it's tough though, because it's who do you leave out then, isn't it?
Yeah, on your point, I think you could summarise that in: is there enough match winners in that squad? They're solid players, don't get me wrong, great players, brilliant players, but I think we're light on match winners.
That's a fair assessment.
Great.
Season review.
Yeah.
So a couple of the old clubs have done well.
Yeah.
Yeovil promotion. Peterborough got to the playoffs. Doncaster playoffs. Sheffield United not so much, but we'll touch on that in a bit.
Yeah.
But
that's a long convo. That was.
Yeah.
Start off with your.
How long have we got for that?
Start off with your hometown club, Yeovil, back into the National League. How close are you to Yeovil at the minute, and what do you make of their season?
Yeah, I'd be wrong if I didn't say I watched it a little bit and all saw how they got on and stuff, because it's been in conference, I've been at Luton now. We've actually got a few players that are on loan at that level,
right, okay.
So that have played against them and of our little bit of background and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I would always, at the end of the day, Yeovil's where I started, and I've always got, from the chairman that was there previous, John Fry, I've always got close affiliation for that. They give me the chance. So I always like to see how they're getting on, sort of thing. They got themselves in a situation they probably should never ever be in by being that low down. However, it is what it is. Sometimes 2 steps forward to go 4 steps forward. 2 steps back, to go 4 steps forward. So they're just in a situation now where they've done what they needed to. They've got promoted. They've got back to the minimum level, what I think the town and everyone should be at. And like I say, it's basically seeing how they get on. I think they've started doing a lot of good things there now by all accounts. Yeah. The people that are there, and Yeovil's one of them places, to be fair, that people, no disrespect to it, but there's not a lot to do there. So as I think someone else has alluded to that, So you've got to appreciate the people that are going there are purely going there to play football. So in the same time as that, as a manager, as a coach there, you're just trying to get the best group of people together possible that are going to strive to all achieve and stuff like that. And by the sound of it, that's probably what they've started to do again and gone back to sort of basics in regards to that. Yeah,
they got bounced back from relegation promotion, didn't they? 11 points, I believe, they won the league by. And the manager, Cooper, had manager of the year. So upward trend. Are they still got the AstroTurf next year?
I think it's a little bit better though than when I used to be there initially. It used to be sand and probably as hard as that concrete flipping thing out next door. But yeah, I think it's actually not bad now. I think it's probably it's still next door with a. I don't think they train on the training pitches next to it now as well, because they had the 2 grass pitches I think that were next to it. But
they're pampered these days, isn't they?
Hey,
all the facilities.
Oh, I know exactly. See,
jump over the goalpost.
I know. It's not like when I was living in it through COVID and stuff, and we had to stay there. But yeah, no, I think they have still got like the astronauts
okay,
still there.
cool.
So,
Okay. Well, Peterborough now they got to the the playoffs. Unfortunately, got knocked out by eventual winners, and close but no cigar. What do you make of their season?
Yeah, again, I think because Peterborough are renowned for bringing through young players and stuff, they're always going to be up and down, and they've always been sort of a team that's flirted with the Championship, probably a little bit like you could argue like Norwich or whatever, with regards to them not being good enough for the Premier League on the whole, but good enough sort of to be that. I mean, I think their sporting director come out saying they're a top 26 club, which sort of automatically hovers them in between that sort of side of it. And I think Peterborough are similar, really. They sort of could flirt around the Championship, but they are a good, solid League One club, and I think they will go up eventually again. But that's the sort of joys of inconsistency of youth probably within their teams. I think there was a couple of times when they literally looked like they might be having a run at top 2, I think, and then they sort of just fell away a little bit just after Christmas. But I think on the whole, I think they've done brilliant. I think they'll be disappointed, obviously, not to make the final after getting to the playoffs, but it shows that anything can happen because obviously Oxford ended up beating.
Yeah,
like I said, Bolton to get there.
Yeah, Oxford made the late run, didn't they, as well, to make the playoffs. And then obviously went all the way then at Wembley, so about just getting it right on the day. You've been involved in some playoff situations. What's it like going into the playoffs at the end of the season? Obviously, especially the leagues is 46 games, and then hopefully an extra 3 games.
Yeah.
What's it like going into that period? A lot of tired legs, I bet, and things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends, again, like you said, on that momentum, how you've got into the playoffs. I think sometimes if you've got in there and just crept over the line and all you're thinking, flipping heck, got to go again here now. But if you're riding on the crest of wave, like you say, and 110 on the bounce or whatever and got in there, you can't wait for the next game, really, and sort of going again. I mean, it's either the best thing in the world when you win it and it's the worst thing in the world when you lose it, being involved in it. But yeah, they're great occasions, and like you say, for any player, the opportunity to play at Wembley is unbelievable. Yeah. So you can never knock that, really, if I'm honest. And like you say, you just sort of hit it head on. It's a great occasion for the fans sometimes, and it's basically anything can happen over the course of essentially 2-3 games. Yeah,
it adds a bit of more excitement as well, because sometimes the top 2 are so far ahead, and then you've got that goal of, well, if we can just get into 6, maybe we can pinch a promotion here. But especially from the fans' perspective as well, it's like you know you might not be in the top 2 or 3 teams, but if you can maybe sneak into 6, you might have a chance of going up.
No, definitely. Well, that's like you say, that's all that can happen. It's just all about momentum then, and like I say, it's a chance. That's all you can ask for. It's a chance. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So we're moving on to Sheffield United now. It's tough for Sheffield United because they having some financial issues. When they went up, they sold Sanderberg to Burnley. And also their top goal scorer, I think it was, they didn't retain him as well. Yeah, so he was gone.
He went out to Marseille.
And I think so. He absolutely tore the Championship apart. And then you feel sorry for the manager. Is it Paul Higginbottom?
Yeah.
He gets him promoted on a shoestring. And then he's kind of like, what you do now? No investment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, finished on 16 points, conceded 104 goals. I think that's a Premier League record, isn't it? Yeah. What do you make of Sheffield United season, and what's the best that they can hope for next season in the Championship? Because it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't in defence then, because it'd probably be about 204. I think from their point of view, I think it was tough. Like you said, it was always going to be tough, and I've been fortunate enough to meet Paul Higginbottom over this summer doing some courses and stuff like that. And all I can say first and foremost, what a great guy he is. And like you say, you meet few and far between in terms of really nice people in football. You hope them to do well, but obviously the situations that occurred at Sheffield, what's happened. I think, if anything, because this is the first time in a long time, years maybe, that it's even happened where all 3 promoted teams have gone back down again. I think, if anything, it's highlighting how big a jump it is now, and I think a lot of that may be because of the new PSR rules and things like that, because I think there's sort of limitations now on even the clubs coming up, how much they can spend to sort of compete, really, now, which is even harder. But I think, like you say, Sheffield are in a situation now where, not the same as Yeovil per se, but they've almost had to take a few steps back now to sort of rebuild. And just, it'll all be, again, with all the teams that have gone down, Sheffield even more so probably, because like you said, how they sort of ended up with such limited points. It's all about how they start. The first 5-6 games will be massive, and that will set the tone. Because if you get off to a bad start, you'll know what it's like, and it can be horrific.
Yeah. So how was it, like, mentally as a defender, if you're going out? Like, they've obviously shipped a lot of goals this year. Mentally, how do you bounce back every week?
Yeah, I think it's one of them as well. If you're not scoring at the other end, it makes it even worse because you think, flipping out, if we concede it, we're in even more bigger trouble because we ain't scoring as well. So I think that's sort of... So it probably makes you on edge more than anything, I would say. Because like you say, you need to probably score 2 or 3 to even win a game or get close to win a game a number of times. Like you say, if they're shipping so many goals, I think they got done 7 or 8 by Newcastle and they got done 6 a few times. And football, I'm a great believer in terms of the standard of players other than when you go to the upper echelons are few and far between. Like at League Two, you've still got as good a players in League Two as what you have in the Championship. They just obviously may not have had the break for whatever reason. So I think a lot of it is confidence. And like you say, if you've only got battered week in, week out, whatever, your confidence is gone, shot. Yep. And that's hard to get out of. As much as when you're winning, that's a nice way to be in a habit to be in exactly that. Yeah. And it can easily go the other way when you're not winning so much. I mean, for a personal example, when we played for Peterborough and we got in the Championship, I think we lost the first 8 games the first time, and like you say, it felt like we were never going to get a win. And then flipped it the other side of Christmas, and we won 12 or won 10 out of 12 or something like that. So again, it can just show you how quickly things can change. And like you say, that's where it comes down to all the people you got in the changing room. That takes a real skill as leadership from the top, management, everything. You all need everyone to buy in.
Do you think sometimes, I don't know if it happened in your career, managers bringing in a bit of new blood, new players can help maybe shift that mentality? Or do you think there's other things that are more important?
I think it's probably, I mean, players and things like that can, like you said, can get changed on a whim at the end of the day. All you are as a player is a commodity to a club. If you're no use, you can easily get shipped in and out. So again, higher up is probably easier to do sometimes. But yeah, I think that all, again, comes down to the start, right from the top of a club in terms of setting that. I mean, everyone talks about culture nowadays. That seems to be the buzzwords and things like that. But I think it is important that you get things like that right. But as much as people can use all the buzzwords in the world, all it is basically just getting good people in good places and making everyone feel important, whether that's the cook, the cleaner, the top brass, your top striker. Everyone's got a part to play within the club to make it what it is. And like you say, you can have an organisation with 15,000 employees or one with 5. If you all feel part of something and they've got a clear objective, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, definitely. And then just touch on your other club, Doncaster as well. 5th place. They went out at the playoffs, losing on penalties.
Yeah.
I think it was 2-0.
They won 2-0 the first one and then lost 2-0. The second one,
to Crewe Alexandra. And then it was at 4-2 on penalties, I believe. So, it's always tough missing out on penalties. Was you ever involved in a penalty shootout?
Yeah, we had a couple when we got, we had one for the Johnson Pate final. We played Swindon on penalties actually, and we ended up winning on penalties. Had it a couple of times in the FA Cup. We actually weirdly beat West Ham on penalties with Sheffield in the League Cup. I think that was about the quarterfinals. Then we got through to the semis and played Tottenham. So yeah, I've had a couple of experiences with penalties, and to be fair, and like you say, it can be.
What's that like?
Did you take a pen?
I took one in both actually, to be fair, so thankfully I've done all right.
Put them away.
Hey, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Better be lucky than good. Just shut your eyes. Just shut your eyes and just kick it. So it was all right. Just pray the keeper goes the other way.
Technique.
Shut your eyes. Zero technique. Yeah. Just absolute kick it as hard as you can.
Yeah, so you just smash it as
the Alan Shearer.
Exactly, but look, I think, like you said, they are a lottery, but they're not at the same time, because at the end of the day, people do the homework on it. It's just about just being decisive, I think, is the most important thing with penalties. But like you say, you've got people, like you say, Matt Tessier or whatever, that were unbelievable at penalties and so confident. And they got some keepers that are just naturally good at them. But I think a lot of it is, if it's your day, it's your day. If it's not, it's not.
Thinking about penalties, England, Euros coming up, obviously history of that. How do teams pick the 5 and then the next lot, if you go beyond the 5? Is it down to a lot about the character of the player? Or is it the technique? Is it seeing them bang in 10 out of 10? I don't know.
Yeah, like you say, there's probably, like anything, there's probably more than one way to skin a cat as such. I've been in a situation where we've done it before, where, like you say, you practice all week up to it, and the 5 best that done all week, the 5 that did it. I've had other situations where no one's done anything, get to the day, right, what 5 fancy it?
Stick around.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it probably, like you said, comes down to the individual. Personally, I'll probably look at it, who's the 5 best with maybe the best technique of striking it the most consistently or something, and then just, like you said, but along with that, those that back themselves the most, because ultimately, inevitably, someone's going to be on the wrong side of it, so you need to know that can they deal with it on the flip side as well. So yeah, that would be my own.
What about legs wise? Obviously, you've been running usually for 90 minutes plus extra time, and then you got that kind of long walk from the halfway line, put the ball on the spot. What's your mindset going through to the moment, like putting it down? I guess there must be a lot of fatigue in it as well. So
yeah, I think personally when I was walking there, it's the most nervous nearly. Other than my wedding day, I think it's one of the most nervous I've ever felt. My legs didn't walk in a straight line, so I probably took about 20 minutes to get there because I was walking everywhere. But yeah, it's a weird feeling if I'm honest, because like you're literally walking like. I've done one where you're the home team and have got your fans in behind you, and then you've done one when you've got the away fans in behind you. So it's, you sort of, I think as best as you can, you shut it out, focus on the ball, and just think, well, if I kick it as true as possible, and as long as I don't scuff it and flipping miss the target, because that's, I think, the worst. That's inconceivable, really, I think.
How much of a difference does it make kicking towards your own fans or the away fans, with the booing and the way you see them, like the fans waving? Does that do anything, or you just
score or not?
It's the after, is it? Yeah, okay.
The relief afterwards, I bet.
I think like you say, obviously, if you're walking up to it with the away fans, you're probably getting all sorts of expletives and expletives label at you and everything. And even if you're home fans, you're probably getting it as well. So
that's it. It's probably like such an intense experience. All eyes, in a game of football, people are watching the play, but this one is all eyes on you, isn't it?
Yeah,
everyone must be a different feeling.
Yeah, must be mental.
Yeah, it's like you say, God knows the ones that do it all the time in games and stuff themselves. So fair play, like you say. If someone can back himself to do it, then crack on.
Yeah. So we're going to move into some of the current goings on in the game. So one of the things that's been talked about a lot is heading.
Yeah.
Do you take it out of training? How can it be reduced to reduce the amount of like impact for the head injuries? What's your take on it as a defender? Obviously, you would have to head the ball quite a lot, maybe a lot in training as well. How can it be made safer for players? And do you think there's an obvious solution or something like that? It's quite difficult.
Well, thankfully, it was the only thing I was really good at. So I'd hate if they took it out of the game from a personal point of view. I think, if I'm honest, it's like anything, it's a skill. So you can't, personally, I believe you can't take it out of the game properly because, and no disrespect, but when you're playing down the leagues or whatever, everyone wants to play a brand of football, like play out from the back, this and this. If you lose your first 5 games, first thing they go, right, shell it, play it down the line, tin at jobby. So everyone does. So I think it's impossible to take it out of the game personally. Yeah. I think, yes, we have got to do more around it and it has got to be monitored to a degree, but at the same time, players that are playing are adults. Time in the professional game, granted at grassroots and it's younger, but I think if there's, I don't know, even if there's some sort of disclaimer like that, the challenges and the difficulties you're getting into, but if you sign something to say, look, I accept, then I don't know, things like that. Yes, you can limit. Again, I appreciate the side of limiting stuff, but again, then if you limit it too much, and then they're losing the repetition of when you get into a game, and then when it matters, like when you're saying again, even like penalties, when you're trying to replicate that game situation. Yeah. Like, I don't know, World Cup final, corner comes in, the geezer's got a free header from 6 yards. Oh, I haven't practiced it this week. Heads it straight over the bar. You're like hammering him, aren't you? So it's one of them things that I think is only now been made more of an issue of, not to dismiss it because I appreciate all the, like you say, the legalities that go with it and all the health and safety and all the personal health, and people have suffered from it, and that's not to diminish that. But I think because of, again, player welfare and things like that, this stuff has now been made more prevalent, and I think it's important, yes, to address it, but I think it's more about educating around it really rather than prevent, if that makes sense. Yep.
So obviously doing your coaching badges, is this something that comes up when you're going through your badges like that in terms of the technical coaching aspects of the game?
Yeah, there was, again, it's like anything in terms of the proper technique to do it properly and stuff like that. That you've now in a situation where, like you say, you've got to be more mindful of it, and you try and limit it as best as you can or as much as you can, which, again, first and foremost, players' health is paramount. That takes a precedent over everything. So I get that. But yeah, I think it just probably boils down to education and making sure people are aware of the risks, and there's more maybe done to support players, maybe more regular scans, more regular checkups, more stringent tests maybe around mental side or headaches and things like that. They're taken a bit more seriously because, like you said, back in the day or whatever, when we were playing or whatever, it was probably even before that, it was I better get on with it. Whereas now I think that it probably does need maybe more highlighting and maybe more sort of due diligence around it and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, well, that leads into our next bit, great actually. What does it take to stay at the top in the professional game? And like you said, we're talking about new technologies coming in or player welfare. Does that make it easier these days to stay at the top level?
What, in terms of a player staying at the
In terms
top?
of a player, all the support.
Well, if you know the answer, tell me. 'Cause I would have liked to get there.
I knew you were going to say that.
As a professional player.
Yeah, I think obviously as a player, the most important thing is your own intrinsic drive and your own intrinsic sort of motivation and why do you do what you want to do. And then you're there to make use of, like you say, there's sports science now that's there, the diet, nutrition, technology, all of that is just, everyone talks about like football changing this. Football hasn't changed in terms of the fundamentals. Yes, the periphery has changed, like you say, the little 1% that people talk about. But the basics of being better than your opponent, running harder than anyone else, being better, practicing more than anyone else, still, I think, personally, probably run true today as much as they did before. Yeah. Because I guarantee if you speak to Messi or anyone like that and say, "Oh, do you practice?" and he says, "No," whatever, he's definitely been practicing probably more than anyone. I mean, there's that massive 10,000 hour rule, isn't there, to be elite at something. And like you say, he probably done that in his first probably 4 years of being born, like playing in Argentina or whatever. So, yeah, I think, like you say, all the technology and all the advancements do help as long as they're used in the right way. And I think we get, again, probably too fixated on blaming everything and anything rather than looking at those within as well sometimes, maybe. So, yeah, but in terms of, I suppose that was a long-winded way of saying to stay at the top, I think it all comes down to how you look after yourself, making more probably sensible decisions. Like you say, you know whether you should go out and drink 20 pints or whatever, 10 pints, and you know whether you should stretch more or go for a jog or see how you feel and things like that. So I think a lot of it comes down to the human element.
Self-management.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, like you say, you ask yourself the question, how much do I want to achieve, or do it at the end of the day, do I want to make the most out of whatever ability I've got? Like, from a personal point of view, I knew I'd never play at the very, very top, but I knew I could do all right maybe once I got in it. So you just try and make the most of it.
That's the top. That's
told
top
you it's better to be lucky than good, so don't worry.
When did you kind of think seriously about, I can make a go of this, I need to take some serious decisions, like say not go out, not drink? We know what it's like when we're teenagers. Was it teenage years? Was it early 20s?
I think probably after I made my debut, really. Yeah, I think, because that for me is when it hit home as, oh, this is real. And when actually everyone, a few players, probably the biggest influence in terms of saying it to me then was like at Yeovil, where I had like Nathan Jones, Marcus Stewart, obviously was probably arguably the biggest one at the time, went like, I can't swear, but say like, well done sort of thing. Like, I was really good after like my debut, because that's your standard, that's where you got to stay at. And I was thinking, right, flipping it, if he's played in the European Cup, he's played at the San Siro, he knows what it's like to do well. And if he's saying I've done well, I must have done all right. So I've got to think, right, now, like, I'm here now.
Early benchmark.
And that sort of, even to this day, like I said, it's rung true to me and made me sort of, think about it. So, in answer to your question, I probably thought about it after I'd made my debut. Really.
Okay. So do you think that particular comment from that particular player maybe just switch it on for you? Do you think if you were maybe in a young team, for example, experience wasn't there?
Possibly, I think, and again, probably true. It must have resonated somewhat. The fact I've remembered it still to this day, sort of thing. So, and I think there's still, through your career, you still go through ups and downs, and you still do things that you shouldn't have done. You may bad for whatever, but I think that was the point where I actually thought I could like provide for myself here, or at least have a career and it beat doing another job for the next 10, 15 years, hopefully. So I better try, and make something of it, really.
Great.
Brilliant.
So into another sort of hot topic at the moment, VAR. Obviously, you wouldn't have had it in your playing days, and it's not in the Championship and the lower leagues, if you like. I think it's been mooted, possibly. But what's your general opinion on it in terms of where it's at the minute, Premier League level, and is it improving decision making, or is it just another talking point?
Again, I think statistically it's improving it, because people are saying now, I think it's 98%, are they saying it's accurate or something like that? And I think, again, yes, it's accurate to help in terms of that. I think there was a thing actually that come out today in terms of Wolves were the only one that opposed it, didn't they, to get it cancelled, I think. But every other team, I think, has voted for it. So,
that surprised me, actually.
Yes and no, I think, because I think the problem with VAR personally, and I've heard a few people saying things like this, I think even Wright might have even said it, I think it's just got to be clearer in terms of what you measure it off. I think Arsene Wenger saying now it's got to be clear daylight, I think, between defender
the offside,
and
isn't it?
And I think Ian Wright said it's just go off the feet, which probably makes, in a way, probably the most sense, or daylight makes the most sense, because, like you say, if someone's leaning one way, a defender's leaning the other way, for me, that should never be offside, things like that. So I think it should be off something that's planted and physically can't move.
I've said the exact same thing about not the biggest profile scene, right? But yeah, you should just use boots, right?
You could be out there after this. You know, you took a step down from match today. You can
Never know. But I think boots would be an obvious one to me. Like, it doesn't matter if your head's slightly leaning forward. That's something you can clearly draw the lines on.
Yeah.
But they also used the other technology which was going to be in place in the Euros, where they got the microchip in the football. So I don't know if they could bring that in as well. Maybe that'll help speed things up.
Yeah, I think just, I've said this before on some of the other shows, but just if you keep the lines in football, the goal line technology, that was fantastic, improved the game. Offside camera, keep that, but obviously get it clarified where you're going from. But all the rest of, like, was it a penalty, wasn't... can you check this for me? There's another opinion again on top of the ref's opinion. I think you need to get rid of the off-field reffing and just keep.
Yeah, I think you allow the ref to make the decision. The problem is, I think now the VAR is making the decision, not the refs, and then you want the ref to make the decision. And then, like, I know the problem I think everyone seems to have is the time between making that decision or whatever. But I think if you just go with whatever the ref said at the time, and then once the play's gone dead or whatever's happened, then you can maybe assess it and maybe pull things back or whatever. But I think you almost need, because you're taking out the spontaneity out of the game personally, and I know you get crap decisions, you get wrong stuff, but that's part of it. At the end of the day, we all know what we sign up for, and
that's grassroots.
Yeah, that's exactly that. Flip an egg. So exactly. So I think it's just obviously we want to make it as good a game, and we want as many right decisions as we can, but you've still got human error. I mean, they still got VAR wrong, didn't they? They said about, was it the Liverpool goal against Tottenham, I think, with the offside?
Diaz goal, wasn't
they still said, that was wrong because it was, but so you're still going to get human error, so you might as well have it where it's more spontaneous than waiting 45 minutes for another decision.
And the reason it came in was the clear and obvious kind of concept, which is gone for me so far away from that. Are you glad you didn't play under it? Was there any big decisions in your career that you remember where you think, VAR would have been handy there?
Yeah, I think there was a couple. I can think it would have been helpful and stuff like that. But again, you can all say if, buts, and maybes and what ifs and stuff. So yes, it's there as long as it's there to enhance the game and make it better, then I'm all for it personally and stuff like that. So I think we're all trying to make these increments and stuff, but I think a lot of it sometimes though, I just, the only time I've got an issue with stuff is if we're just changing it for the sake of changing it, just to be new or innovative and stuff. Like I said, football hasn't changed ever since it started in its inception. It's still 11 men against 11, best players 9 times out of 10 win, other than obviously that's what a cup is, because you get the odd cup shocks, but same teams that win the league. The best teams that's been the best team wins the league over the course of 40 games.
So that was another thing that VAR kind of robbed, wasn't it? The Manchester United semi-final versus Coventry. You know, that would have been a massive upset and one for the ages, but it's kind of taken away from us on that one. But we're just going to talk about the pyramid system now. And you're someone who's benefited from the pyramid system, but it's under threat a little bit from the Super League. And then we're also seeing lots of high-profile players moving up to the Saudi League. What are your thoughts on the Super League? Obviously, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it doesn't really go. It goes against all the tradition that we have in English football, and a lot of players as well. They don't get a chance to just go straight into the Premier League. They got to work their way up through the pyramid system. What are your thoughts on potential Super League and the way they're trying to change the system?
If I'm honest, I think we've got one already, Premier League, as such. But ultimately that was formed for like having the best of the best, essentially, in that league. The Champions League essentially is a Super League, all right? It's a cup format and knockout. The only thing I think with the Champions League is to stop being the champions of each, obviously, league and stuff like that go into it. But again, I think everyone's saying about too many schedules of playing and stuff like this. So why then do we increase another competition to make even more games? We struggled to even get there. Was it the Carabao Cup can't even barely get in now? We're having to scrap replays in the FA Cup and everything. Right, so I'm all for changing the game and making it better, but not when at this point with the Super League and all that. And that's why I think so many teams now, again, just from a personal point of view, so don't shoot me down and stuff. I think in terms of there's so many foreign investors now in terms of Premier League clubs now, and that adopting that sort of American model ownership like NFL and stuff, because they're just seeing it as literally as cash cows and stuff like that, because they're seeing all the money side of it, which is, I mean, it's great from one respect, but if that money going into the infrastructure of clubs to build academies, build like the town, and fair play to Man City, they obviously did loads for the city of Manchester with regeneration and stuff like that. So I think if there's investment doing that, then that's fine. But in terms of going into leagues and creating an elitist sort of super league that you can't get relegated out of, and you can't do that. And again, it loses its... I think the whole point of, again, Champions League and all that is because ultimately you want the best teams to be playing each other. Not every week, because then it loses its sort of... the gravitas and the pull of and the excitement of, like you said, if Man U play Liverpool 9 times out of 10 on Super Sunday, right, 9 times out of 10 the game not always be the best, but everyone looks forward to that game. Whereas if you're playing Liverpool, no Arsenal, them thing, you sort of, I think over time you might get a bit like, they play Man U, Barcelona, right, I think that's part of the enthrall and intrigue of playing like your bigger teams, that they don't come around every week.
That's a good point.
You'd lose it in the shuffle, really, wouldn't you? Because if you've got 10 teams in there, someone's going to finish bottom, and if you're 10th in the Super League, if you're Chelsea or Juventus or something, just takes away from that prestige of the club, then, doesn't it? Yeah,
but if you finish 10th and you finish bottom or something, for me, again, in terms of bringing relegation and promotion in, you should be knocked out essentially. Or
we said,
give someone else an opportunity.
If they're away playing in the Super League, and like we said, they're already knocking replays on the head. Yeah. The smaller clubs, like Yeovil, how much money would a second leg replay against Liverpool, Man United? That's where you're effectively taking the money off.
Yeah, exactly. And not even just the money side of it, even from like a fan's point of view, like that's cherished memories and stuff. Football's very tribal, isn't it? And like you say, as a Cardiff fan, whatever, if you had Swansea winning an FA Cup final, semi-final or something like, even a final, like you say, you're taking them moments away from families, from generations and stuff. And I think there are certain things, yes, that need changing, but certain things I don't think you need to, because that's what makes us individuals. Otherwise, we're all like robots and we'll go and do the same thing. It's a bit boring.
It would be,
yeah, definitely. And Saudi League then. What are your thoughts on all the money that's getting chucked into that? And would you like to be a part of it maybe one day?
If I could have been signed then, I would have been happy.
Get your boots back out.
Off you go. Not wrong.
We're open to a Saudi podcast, mind, if you want to check some bits in.
Exactly. Again, I think it's people coming in with new ideas, and again, if that's what people are doing and people are prepared to chuck money, I think this has got more legs and more sustainability than what happened in that time when China tried to obviously.
Do you think so? Yeah.
Across, I think it's got a little bit more sustainable than that, because their funds do literally seem limitless to a certain degree.
Yeah.
As a player, what would be, if you could think as a player, what would be maybe the draw to go to Saudi Arabia?
Again, everyone's different. I can't speak for everyone and stuff like that. But I know personally for myself or whatever, if I was ever in that situation, I'm not going to lie, it would be for the money. And that's it. Yeah. That would be the only reason. Because, again, that's not me being disrespectful to anything else. And the other side of it, I've got a family here. I want to live around here sort of thing. So I know if I'm going over there, realistically, I'm only going over for a year, couple of years, get the money and then come back. Yeah. So that, for me personally, doesn't sit right unless, again, I'm all for players wanting to make as much money as they can in a short space of time. You've got the shortest career possible, like you say.
Yeah.
But as long, I just think more in terms of that solely, like if you go in, just be honest with why it is you're going sometimes, I think, because I think you gain more credibility whichever way you look at it. And like you say, with all due respect, you're never going to appeal to everyone. Everyone's never going to like what you do. So stand for your own beliefs and stay true to yourself. If you've gone over there for money, fair enough. If you've gone over there because basically no one here wants me, so I'm going over there because I'm being offered a job.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes what is bare facts of it.
Well, you mentioned that actually, and there's a marked difference in between how Kevin De Bruyne has been perceived after he came out and said, yeah, I'd go over there, I'd earn more money in 1 year than I would in 15 years in my playing career, and that's what I'd be going over there for. And then Jordan Henderson come out and said, I'm going over there to try and grow the standard of football, kind of went down that route, and he got absolutely battered for that. But you can't blame players for going over there and earning a few quid, and because your career is short and you want to try and secure money for your family, and it's multi-generational wealth. I mean, the people who are saying, they shouldn't go out there, if they was offered the same chance, they'd be off on the first plane. So.
Exactly. And look, other people have got stronger beliefs and don't want to go for whatever reason and stuff without going into like too much stuff. But I think, like you said, as long as you respect and are true to yourself why it is you're going over there, and like you say, it's a byproduct that if you're going to grow the pace of the game, the standard of the game, like you say, I've no disrespect, if you're getting Benzema, Ronaldo, Messi, De Bruyne or whatever, naturally, it will upskill a lot of the league, but ultimately, the fundamental reason of them going is because of the money.
Yeah, well, we're talking about it now, and we wouldn't have been talking about it like 3 seasons ago, would we?
No.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Ronaldo. I mean, does that guy need any more money? I mean,
I think
maybe he's...
You always need more money, Steve.
Yeah, I suppose, maybe. But I don't know if this is his reason, but I genuinely think there is a part of growing the game out there. Obviously, he's bringing a lot of publicity to the game out there, but...
Yeah, I think personally, looking in for Ronaldo, I think he knows that he's not stupid. He knows himself. He can play at the highest. He's played at the highest level. Look, don't get me wrong. So he's done everything he wants, but he knows he's maybe not quite the highest level in terms of Spain, England, Italy as what he would be now. However, he knows if he goes over there, he probably still is of the highest level and can still carry on playing. And I just genuinely think he loves football that much that he knows he can go over there and still play at the highest level for longer than if he stays here. Yes, I know the money will go and grow the game and he'll be part of that. But I think his reason actually is almost even more simplistic to the point. I just think he loves playing football that much and he's got that most inner desire out of anyone I've ever seen in football. Yeah. And I think he just naturally wants to still be the best. The kid in the playground that wants to be the best. And I think he knows in England, in Spain, in Italy, he wouldn't be the best. Whereas I think he knows over there at the minute, he still is.
He's top dog, isn't he?
Yeah. And he's managed to bag a seat on the plane to the Euros as well.
Yeah, I think, never in question what he's done. And I think he even finished the Saudi Pro League's top goal scorer or something, not far off. Or something like that. So
50 goals in all competitions, I think it was.
Again, so he's not bad, really, to be fair.
He just knows where the back of the net is, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. But I think his reason probably is slightly different in terms of that. And I don't want to completely go into everything else we've said. But again, I think you've got to judge everyone, like we've said before. Everyone's got reasons and values for doing something. Just respect their decision and get on with it. I think we make too much of something just to have something to talk about.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Part 1 of Craig Alcock. Don't forget, we've got part 2 coming up. If you want to watch it now, you can join our members club for $2.99. You'll get instant access to that episode 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and drop some comments if you want to chat about what we talked about. Thanks for watching. Have a world-class weekend.